Nurse helped billionaire CEO. But what happened next changed everything. The ambulance doors swung open, and Grace rushed forward. Male, mid-30s, fractured tibia from a motorcycle accident, the paramedic announced. Vital signs stable, but he's in significant pain. Grace looked down at the man on the stretcher. His face was pale, jaw clenched tight. His right leg was swollen, bent at an unnatural angle. His clothes were dusty and torn, just a simple t-shirt and jeans, nothing remarkable. "We're going to take care of you," Grace said gently, meeting his eyes. He nodded, teeth gritted, sweat beaded on his forehead. The nearest hospital with an orthopedic surgeon was 3 hours away. Dr. Patel, St. Mary's only doctor, was on call but wouldn't arrive for another hour. The man needed immediate pain management, x-rays, and stabilization. Grace made a decision. "Let's get him into exam room 2, she said to the paramedics. "I'll handle it from here." She worked quickly, administering pain medication from their limited supply, taking x-rays with their aging equipment, cleaning the abrasions on his hands and arms with careful precision. "This is going to hurt," she warned before adjusting the splint. He inhaled sharply but didn't cry out. His eyes found hers, dark brown, surprisingly steady despite the pain. For a moment, something passed between them. A flicker of awareness, connection. "You're good at this," he said through gritted teeth. "I try." She smiled softly, her hands still gentle on his leg. "What's your name?" "William. William Ashford." "I'm Grace." "Just breathe, William. You're doing great." She stayed with him for over an hour, monitoring his vitals, adjusting his IV, speaking in low, soothing tones. She told him about the town, about the wildflowers that grew by the river in spring, about anything that might distract him from the pain. William listened, watching her face as she spoke. There was something about her, the kindness in her eyes, the gentle strength in her voice, that made him feel safe in a way he hadn't felt in years. When Dr. Patel finally arrived and confirmed the fracture would need surgery, Grace had already prepared everything. Medical history taken, consent forms ready, IV fluids running smoothly. "Excellent work, Grace," Dr. Patel murmured. "You may have saved this leg." Before William was transferred to the city hospital, he caught her hand. His grip was warm, grateful. "Thank you, Grace," he said, his voice genuine. "You made this bearable." "Get well soon," she replied. Their eyes held for a beat too long. She thought it ended there, but her kindness had already set something greater in motion. Grace Collins had been working at St. Mary's Rural Clinic for nearly 3 years. The small hospital served farmers, factory workers, and elderly residents who couldn't afford expensive city hospitals. The building was old, paint peeling, equipment outdated, staff stretched impossibly thin. Grace lived with her younger sister, Lily, in a cramped apartment above the town's only grocery store. Lily was 18, brilliant, and had just been accepted to college with a partial scholarship. The remaining tuition was more than Grace made in 6 months. Their parents had died in a house fire when Grace was 24. Since then, Grace had been mother, sister, and provider, all at once. She worked double shifts, wore the same 2 pairs of scrubs until they were threadbare, and skipped meals to make sure Lily had everything she needed. But Lily noticed. She'd started picking up weekend shifts at the grocery store downstairs, insisting Grace take occasional evenings off. "You deserve a life, too," Lily had said firmly just last week. "Stop being a martyr and go do something fun for once." Grace had laughed it off, but the words had stuck. Every night, walking home under the stars, Grace whispered the same prayer. "Just let me give Lily the future she deserves." She didn't know that the man with the broken leg had been thinking about her every day since the accident. She didn't know he was the CEO of Ashford Global, a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And she didn't know he'd been riding that motorcycle anonymously through rural areas, surveying communities for a healthcare initiative, when he'd swerved to avoid a dog and crashed. All she knew was that she'd done her job with everything she had. 6 weeks later, William returned to St. Mary's. Grace was organizing supplies when she heard a familiar voice at reception. "I'm looking for Nurse Grace Collins." She turned, and there he was. William stood on crutches, his leg in a walking cast, dressed simply in a Henley and jeans. But he was smiling, his eyes bright. "William," Grace hurried over. "You're walking." "Thanks to you," he said warmly. "The surgeon said your care made all the difference. If you hadn't stabilized everything so perfectly, I could have lost function in my leg." She felt her cheeks flush. "I just did my job." "No." His voice was firm, his gaze intense. "You did more than that. You stayed late. You used supplies I'm guessing this clinic can barely spare. You treated me like I mattered." "Everyone matters," Grace said quietly. He studied her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asked. "As a thank you." Grace hesitated. She rarely took time for herself. But Lily's words echoed in her mind, and something about the way William looked at her, hopeful and sincere, made her nod. "Okay. Yes." His smile transformed his face. They met that evening at the small diner on Main Street. William ordered a burger. Grace ordered soup. "So, what do you do for work?" Grace asked, curious. "I advise companies on strategy and efficiency," William said smoothly. "Help them optimize operations, improve systems. It requires a lot of travel." "Sounds lonely." "It is," he admitted, his eyes on hers. "What about you? Have you always wanted to be a nurse?" "Since I was little. My mom was a nurse too. She used to bring me to the hospital on weekends. I'd watch her care for patients, and I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life." "She'd be proud of you." Grace's throat tightened. "I hope so." They talked easily about her patients, about Lily's college dreams, about the challenges of keeping St. Mary's running on a shoestring budget. William asked thoughtful questions, genuinely interested in every detail. "This town is lucky to have you," he said softly. "I'm lucky to have this town," Grace replied. "These people, their family." When he paid, Grace noticed he left a $20 tip on a $15 check. "That's generous," she observed. He shrugged. "Good service deserves it." But something about the gesture made her curious. Walking her home that night, the autumn air cool around them, William paused at her door. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Grace's heart skipped. "You'd want to?" "Very much." She smiled. "Then yes." After she went inside, William pulled out his phone. "Richard, I need you to look into St. Mary's Clinic. Funding, needs, everything, and keep it quiet." He walked back to his hotel slowly, his mind full of Grace's face, the way she lit up when she talked about her patients, the quiet strength she carried, the selflessness that seemed woven into her very being. He'd met countless people in his world, but Grace was different. She was real. Over the next 3 weeks, William visited Grace 8 times. They walked along the river, leaves crunching underfoot, shared coffee at the diner, their conversations stretching for hours, talked about dreams and fears and the things that mattered most. One afternoon, William met Lily when she stopped by the clinic after school. The girl was sharp, funny, and fiercely protective of her sister. You hurt her, and I'll make your life miserable, Lily said cheerfully. But her eyes were serious. William laughed. I believe you, but I have no intention of hurting her. Good. Lily studied him. She deserves someone who sees how amazing she is. I do, William said quietly. More than she knows. Grace found herself falling, slowly, then all at once. William was kind, thoughtful, and made her laugh in ways she hadn't in years. He listened when she talked about her fears for Lily's future, about the clinic struggles, about the weight she carried. He made her feel seen. But questions lingered. One evening, as they sat by the water watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, she finally asked, William, what do you really do? He tensed. What do you mean? You said consulting. But there's something you're not telling me. The way you talk about business, the way you tip, the confidence you carry. He was quiet for a long moment, watching the water ripple. You're right, he said finally. I haven't been completely honest. I'm not just a consultant. I'm more involved in business than I let on. I have money, a lot of it. Grace's breath caught. How much? Enough that most people treat me differently when they find out. Enough that I never know if someone likes me for who I am or what I can give them. She understood then. You wanted me to see you as just William? Yes. His voice was raw. With you, I'm not a title or a bank account. I'm just me. Grace reached for his hand. That's exactly who you are to me. Just William. The man who makes me laugh, who listens, who sees me. Relief flooded his face. He laced his fingers through hers. Grace Collins, he whispered, I'm falling in love with you. I'm falling in love with you too, she admitted, her heart full. He leaned in and kissed her, soft, tender, full of promise. The world seemed to hold its breath around them. But Grace still didn't know the whole truth. And it was about to change everything. Just days later, Grace arrived at work to find the parking lot full of black SUVs. Her stomach twisted with confusion. Inside, the waiting room was crowded with people in suits. Dr. Patel stood in the center, looking overwhelmed and bewildered. Grace, he called, you need to see this. She pushed through and froze. William stood near reception, but he looked different. He wore a tailored suit that fit him perfectly, his posture commanding. Beside him stood assistants with clipboards and briefcases. A professional photographer adjusted a camera in the corner. William, Grace's voice was small. What's happening? Grace's heart pounded. She could feel every eye in the room on them. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. He stepped forward, his expression gentle but serious. Grace, there's something I need to tell you. My full name is William Ashford. I'm the CEO of Ashford Global. The room fell silent. Grace's mind reeled. Ashford Global, one of the largest corporations in the country. She'd seen their name on news websites, on buildings in the city. William addressed the room, but his eyes stayed on Grace. 6 weeks ago, I had an accident and was brought to St. Mary's. Nurse Grace Collins provided exceptional care that prevented serious complications. In the weeks since, I've gotten to know this community and seen how one incredible nurse holds this place together through sheer heart and skill. He paused, letting the words sink in. That's why Ashford Global is donating $5 million to St. Mary's Clinic for renovations, new medical equipment, and hiring additional staff. We're also establishing a scholarship program for nursing students in underserved communities across the region. Gasps filled the room. Dr. Patel's eyes widened, his hand covering his mouth. And Grace, William's voice softened as he turned fully to her. We'd like to offer you a position as Director of Rural Healthcare Initiatives for Ashford Global. You'd oversee programs across the country, ensuring communities like this one get the resources they need. Full salary, benefits, and a complete scholarship for your sister. All 4 years, tuition, and living expenses. Tears streamed down Grace's face. Her hands trembled. Why? She whispered. William crossed to her, gently cupping her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Because you showed me what real compassion looks like. Because you treated a stranger like he mattered, not knowing who he was, expecting nothing in return. Because you're exactly who should be leading change in healthcare. He smiled, his own eyes glistening. The room erupted in applause. Grace laughed through her tears, overwhelmed and grateful, and so in love she could barely breathe. Yes, she whispered, yes to everything. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her, in front of everyone, unashamed and full of joy. Dr. Patel was crying, the staff was cheering, and Grace felt like she was dreaming, but it was real. All of it was real. 6 months later, Grace stood in the newly renovated St. Mary's Clinic, now a state-of-the-art facility serving 3 counties. The walls were freshly painted. New equipment filled every room. The staff had tripled in size, and patients no longer had to wait hours for care. Lily was thriving in college, tuition fully covered, calling Grace every Sunday with stories about her classes and new friends. And Grace wore a simple engagement ring that caught the light as she worked alongside the expanded staff she'd helped hire. Their engagement was still new, still thrilling, still full of promise. She split her time now, half at St. Mary's, half traveling to other rural communities, implementing programs that would change countless lives. William visited every weekend, and they were building a life together, grounded in kindness, compassion, and love. One evening, as they walked the same river path where they'd first held hands, William stopped. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. Taking the job, leaving full-time clinical work. Grace thought for a moment, then shook her head. "I'm helping more people now than I ever could have alone. And I get to do it with you." She squeezed his hand. "That motorcycle accident was the best thing that ever happened to me." William laughed, then grew quiet. He looked at her with such tenderness, it took her breath away. "I still remember the moment you leaned over me in that exam room," he said softly. "I was in pain, scared, uncertain. But you made me believe I'd be okay. You saw me, not as someone important or powerful, just as someone who needed help. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" Grace whispered. "That I'd found something rare. Someone real." He pulled her close. "You changed everything for me, Grace." "You changed everything for me too," she said, her voice thick with emotion. The small act of caring for a stranger with a broken leg had transformed everything. Grace had learned that sometimes the greatest blessings come from simply doing what's right, no matter who's watching. Because true kindness always finds its way back. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and join us for more soulful stories. We'll see you in the next one.